A route from Norway to North America was not one leap, but a chain of workable crossings. Each link depended upon ships, settlements, labor, knowledge, and places willing or forced to supply the next voyage. Scandinavian movement became possible when many ordinary systems aligned across great distances. No invention, leader, or desire for adventure carried the whole process. Expansion included raiding, trade, migration, conquest, tribute collection, exploration, and service under foreign rulers. Those activities shared infrastructure while producing very different relationships with local populations. Understanding possibility means tracing constraints that every crew had to overcome. Norway's long coast, Danish straits, Swedish lakes, Baltic shores, and Russian rivers formed overlapping maritime environments. Sailing routes followed landing places, currents, winds, portages, and seasonal daylight rather than straight lines. Experienced travelers accumulated practical geography that rarely entered writing. Place names, settlement patterns, ship finds, and later texts preserve only fragments of that knowledge. Its value became visible whenever crews returned along a route others could repeat. Clinker construction gave northern vessels strong, flexible hulls from overlapping planks fastened with iron rivets. Builders adapted proportions to different purposes instead of producing one universal longship. Warships emphasized cruise and speed, while cargo vessels carried heavier goods, livestock, and provisions. Shallow draft permitted beach landings and movement through waterways inaccessible to deep-keeled ships. Sails expanded range, but oars remained critical during calm weather and confined approaches. Steering, trimming sail, reading waves, and coordinating rowers required practiced crews. A ship without competence was expensive timber exposed to weather. The surviving vessels from Skoldilev demonstrate deliberate specialization within an 11th century maritime system. They include warships and cargo carriers built for different combinations of speed, capacity, and waters. Because they sank late in the Viking Age, they reveal mature development rather than the moment expansion began. Earlier finds and images show that clinker traditions evolved over centuries. Experimental voyages can test performance under chosen conditions, but cannot recreate every historical decision. Behind each hull stood an enormous production network. Trees had to be selected, felled, split, shaped, transported, and assembled. Ironworkers supplied rivets and tools, rope makers processed fiber, farmers supported specialists. Woolen sails demanded especially large investments of fleece preparation, spinning, weaving, and finishing. Much of that labor occurred in households and remains unnamed in chronicles. Expansion rested upon people who never appeared in accounts of raids. Crews needed water, preserved food, clothing, repair material, and space that cargo or fighters could otherwise occupy. Longer voyages required dependable resupply or settlements positioned along the route. Livestock aboard migration ships increased both possibility and risk. Storms, spoilage, sickness, and delayed landfalls could defeat the best-built vessel. Navigation combined accumulated experience with observation of coastlines, sun, stars, wind, birds, waves, and water depth. No surviving Viking Age manual explains one standardized northern technique. Later texts mention navigational practices, but their dates and literary settings require caution. Specialized instruments proposed by modern researchers remain disputed unless securely contextualized. Successful crossings prove effective knowledge, not a single secret device. Merchants learned where goods were valued, which rulers offered protection, and where tolls or threats waited. Raiders could exploit similar intelligence for different ends. Migrants needed knowledge about land, pasture, harbor access, and existing inhabitants. Routes grew safer for insiders when repeated voyages converted uncertainty into shared practice. Hedeby linked the North Sea and Baltic through nearby overland connections. Birka connected central Sweden with Baltic exchange, while Kopang served networks along Norway's southern coast. These settlements concentrated crafts, imports, weights, silver, food, and people from varied backgrounds. They did not operate outside politics. Protection and extraction often accompanied commerce. Scales and weights allowed bullion exchange across different coin traditions. Silver from the Islamic world reached northern Europe through many hands and routes. Frankish goods, insular metalwork, furs, wax beads, whetstones, and enslaved people moved through unequal exchanges. Foreign objects prove connectivity without proving direct travel by their final owners. Networks could expand farther than any individual itinerary. Leaders assembled crews through gifts, obligation, kinship, coercion, reputation, and expected reward. Larger armies required provisioning, customs, negotiation, and mechanisms for dividing wealth. Kings increasingly claimed tolls, tribute, ports, fleets, and control over strategic passages. Their authority remained contested, varying across regions and decades. Expansion advanced when leaders could coordinate resources beyond one household. It faltered when alliances fractured or supplies failed. Scandinavian groups traded with, married into, hired, fought, and governed among existing communities. Interpreters, pilots, craftspeople, brokers, and political allies made foreign environments navigable. Conquest alone cannot explain durable settlement in England, Ireland, Normandy, or the Eastern River world. Newcomers adapted to local law, agriculture, religion, language, and power. Those accommodations changed both migrants and host societies. Captives supplied saleable wealth and forced labor, while tribute redirected local production toward armed groups. Settlements could displace previous users of land or place them under new rulers. Commerce and violence frequently shared ships, markets, and political protection. Calling the process exploration alone would erase those human costs. Calling every traveler a raider would erase the cooperation that sustained distant communities. The North Atlantic reveals the system's geographic limits with unusual clarity. Settlement in Iceland created farms, harbors, assemblies, and a stepping stone toward Greenland. Greenlandic Norse communities then depended upon farming, hunting, regional exchange, and continuing Atlantic connections. Voyages reached North America around the year 1000, as archaeology at Meadows securely demonstrates. The site shows a short-lived Norse presence in a land long inhabited by indigenous peoples. Its buildings and ironworking confirm arrival, not a permanent expanding colony. Distance, small populations, supply difficulties, and relations with indigenous communities constrained continuation. Ships made the crossing possible. Ships did not make success inevitable. Travelers crossed the Baltic, entered river systems, hauled craft around rapids or between watersheds, and joined established markets. Scandinavians participated among Slavic, Finnic, Baltic, steppe, Byzantine, and Islamic-connected communities. The Rus political world emerged through these interactions rather than as a transplanted Scandinavian empire. Varangians later served Byzantine emperors, converting northern mobility into salaried military service. Every stage relied upon local roots and powers beyond Scandinavian control. Conversion connected rulers and communities with Christian diplomacy, literacy, institutions, and concepts of kingship. It also created conflict and unfolded unevenly rather than following one command. Christian Scandinavians continued long-distance warfare and commerce under altered legitimating language. Faith changed network access without replacing material constraints. Expansion eventually produced states and settlements capable of regulating the mobility that created them. Fortified towns, taxation, royal fleets defended coasts, and stronger territorial powers raised costs for independent raiders. Some Scandinavian leaders became monarchs whose interests favored control over uncontrolled predation. Overseas settlers developed local loyalties that no longer pointed simply toward a northern homeland. The system transformed its participants until the label Viking explained less. Archaeology securely demonstrates specialized vessels, trading nodes, repeated routes, settlements, and transferred materials. Written sources reveal alliances, attacks, tribute, service, and political adaptation, though never from a neutral viewpoint. Neither evidence class identifies one master cause behind every movement. Together, they show capacity assembled from interdependent parts. Seaworthy hulls extended reach, accumulated knowledge reduced navigational risk, markets supplied information and reward. Household labor built sails and provisions, while political organization gathered crews and redistributed gains. Foreign partners opened routes, and local production sustained newcomers after landing. Where those supports weakened, even skilled voyagers reached a limit. Viking expansion became possible through a flexible maritime system, not an irresistible people or miraculous ship. Its greatest distances were achieved one maintained connection at a time.